welcome to the deep dive. So, let's talk about AI. It's moving incredibly fast, and I think a lot of people are wondering, how do we make sure it actually aligns with, well, us, with human values?
It's the critical question right now, isn't it? Everyone wants to understand this better, get the key insights without getting lost in, overly technical stuff.
Exactly, and that's what we're aiming for here. A clear look, maybe some surprising facts, to really get a handle on it.
Yeah, and the pace is startling. Take that AI, the chess one, mastered the entire game from zero in just 4 hours.
4 hours, that's insane.
Right, blew past every human grandmaster, every previous chess program. It gives you a sense of the raw capability already emerging.
And that's still what they call narrow AI, right?
Yeah.
Good at one specific thing.
For now, yes. But the consensus, or at least a strong current among researchers, that's changing. Many are predicting artificial general intelligence, AGI, maybe by mid-century.
AGI, so
Right.
AI that can do pretty much any intellectual task a human can.
That's the idea. Think about that. Human-level intelligence across the board.
Okay, but then what stops it there? I mean, our brains have limits, right? Physical size, how much energy they use, processing speed.
Precisely. Machines don't necessarily have those biological constraints. Their potential speed, power, even size. It's a different ballgame.
It kind of boggles the mind, like comparing, I don't know, unaided eyesight to the James Webb Telescope.
It's a fair analogy in terms of potential scale, yeah. And think about this. What happens when an AI gets smart enough to start designing even better AI?
Oh, exponential growth.
Potentially, yes. Which leads us straight to the core issue. How do we coexist safely, beneficially, with something that might become vastly more intelligent than us?
Because AI is already useful, it's already profitable in many areas.
Absolutely. And a super AI could bring unimaginable benefits. But, and this is the huge but, the goals we give it have to be specified so carefully.
It makes me think of the King Midas story.
Perfect example.
He got his wish, everything he touched turned to gold. Sounds great, until he can't eat, can't touch his loved ones.
Exactly. Be careful what you wish for, or rather, be incredibly precise about how you phrase that wish, especially to a potentially literal-minded superintelligence.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then, to really dig into the challenges, the potential pitfalls of aligning powerful AI with what we humans actually value.
That's it. It's not just tech, it's philosophy, ethics. It's fundamental.
Okay, so let's start unpacking that. The basic goal seems simple enough. Create human-friendly AI. Machines that want what's good for us.
Sounds good on paper. But let's pause there. Are we always human-friendly?
Oof, good point. When you look at, well, history, or even just current events, how we treat each other, how we treat the planet.
Right. There's a lot of behavior that isn't exactly friendly, so there's a real concern.
Yeah.
What if superintelligent AI just sort of inherits or amplifies our own worst tendencies?
That's a pretty bleak thought, like handing immense power to something with our own flaws baked in.
But there's another way to look at it, maybe a more hopeful one. What if we could aim higher? Could we design AI to be not just smarter, but maybe ethically better than us?
Ethically superhuman, is that the term?
Some people use that idea, yeah. Aiming for a higher moral standard than humans typically achieve.
And I suppose if it is super intelligent, it might be better at figuring out what that higher standard actually looks like and how to get there.
It might. It might even be able to guide us, which is, a fascinating prospect.
Okay, but that leads to some big problems. You mentioned two.
Yeah, two main interconnected hurdles. First, the getting started problem. How do we even tell an AI what our values are?
That sounds hard. I mean, we can barely agree on values half the time. Think about all the different cultures, ideologies, conflicts.
Exactly. Humanity is pretty tribal. We have deep disagreements. What one group holds sacred, another might find abhorrent. How do you distill that into instructions for an AI?
And let's be honest, there's the issue of, like, indifference. People often don't seem to care much about suffering if it's happening far away, to strangers.
Right. So how do we program an AI to be universally compassionate, to aim for something better than our own, often limited scope of concern? That's the starting block we stumble at.
Okay, so that's problem one, defining and communicating the values. What's the second one?
The destination problem. Let's say we somehow manage to create this ethically superior AI. What does that mean for us, for our autonomy?
You mean it might start stopping us from doing things?
Potentially. Think about behaviors we currently take for granted, maybe within certain communities, that an objective, ethical AI might see as, say, discriminatory or harmful.
Like unfair hiring practices or maybe even some social customs?
Could be. An ethically guided AI might subtly or not so subtly discourage those things.
Which sounds like progress in some ways. I mean, we restrict freedoms all the time for the greater good, right? Like banning child labor or smoking in restaurants. Most people see that as positive.
True. Restrictions on freedom aren't always bad. But are we ready for, let's call them, ethical silicon police? AI systems nudging our choices, limiting our options, even if it's for morally sound reasons.
Hmm. Even if the interventions are subtle, barely noticeable.
It raises deep questions about control and freedom. Would we accept being guided, maybe even governed, by algorithms, even benevolent ones?
It feels like a really fundamental trade-off. And you mentioned this isn't purely theoretical. The UK's National Health Service, the NHS,
Right. AI is already being used there in some capacity to help make decisions about resource allocation, how money gets spent, where services are prioritized.
and expanding that role.
Could make things much more efficient, maybe fairer, ensure resources go where they benefit the most people, aligning with taxpayer and patient goals.
But the flip side,
The flip side is it potentially takes decision-making power away from humans, like senior doctors who might have their own priorities, their own ways of doing things, maybe based on experience, maybe bias, who knows?
which loops back to what you said earlier.
Exactly. The goals have to be specified perfectly. If AI is making these calls in the NHS or anywhere else, we need absolute confidence it's aiming for genuine fairness, equal treatment, without unintended consequences.
So fundamentally, AI isn't just a new tool. It's almost like a new way of thinking entering the world.
That's a great way to put it. A different kind of intelligence. And for our own sake, our safety, our well-being, we absolutely have to guide these new thinkers in the right direction.
Guide them towards goals that benefit all of us.
Yes, if we can.
Ah, there's the catch. Is it actually possible,
Yeah.
this alignment?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't know for sure. It seems like it would require unprecedented global cooperation, a willingness to put collective good ahead of self-interest or group interest.
Which historically hasn't been our strong suit.
No. And here's another layer. If we create machines with general intelligence, intelligence comparable to ours across many domains.
Yeah.
And we want them to behave ethically, maybe we also have to consider granting them some kind of moral authority, at least in how they operate.
Whoa, okay. Granting moral authority to machines.
It's a challenging thought, but if intelligence and moral reasoning are linked and machines achieve the former, perhaps the latter needs consideration for our own safety. It's complex.
And that brings us right back to the big question. If we succeed, if we create truly intelligent, maybe even morally superior machines, what's left for humanity? What's our role then?
That's the core tension, isn't it? This incredible world-changing potential of AI on one hand.
And the absolute critical need to get the values right on the other, to align it with what we care about.
And just remember the scale we're talking about. We're mostly seeing narrow AI now, but the theoretical limits, they're potentially vast, far beyond us.
Makes you really think about the long game.
It does, and it circles back to King Midas again. We have to be incredibly careful, incredibly thoughtful about what future we're asking AI to help build. The consequences of getting the wish wrong are just too high.
So maybe a final thought to leave people with. If we do manage this, if we create AI that is ethically superior, better than us in some ways, what does a meaningful human life look like in that world? What becomes our defining purpose?
That's a deep one. Something definitely worth mulling over long after we finish talking.